We all live with a perilous tendency. We tend to forget. We all do. All of us. We get distracted, comfortable, busy. We forget. It's in those moments of forgetfulness that we tend to veer off course if we're not careful. We forget about the sacrifice that was made by millions who came before us. There's an entire generation that does not forget. Heroes who stood up and stood in the way of evil regimes that threatened the world. Men and women who marched off to war so that we wouldn't have to. People who laid down their individual plans and dreams, security and safety for us. People they didn't even know. So what if we remembered?
Hello, sir. How are you? Welcome aboard. Thank you for your service.
I don't know of anything greater that you can do as a state or a nation is to honor those men and women that have served our country.
You know, we all need to understand a sense of where we've been as a people, as a nation. And I think that if we lose those stories, if we lose telling that story and passing that on to the next generation, then we lose ourselves.
Okay. If you... That doesn't sound good. That's G. Okay, give me a pitch again. If you happen to be a young man and riding on a bike, and if you're in Wyoming, you just might know what I like about this day. It's too low. Oh, that's hard.
Dad actually was a little older than most men when he had his children, so we had a unique perspective from the old days, the World War II veterans, the greatest generation that's almost gone now. There's so many things he can do, and not just do, but do well, far exceeding what I could ever dream of being able to do. You know, he is an accomplished artist, painter, sculptor, drawer, novelist, poet, and the list goes on. And that's just in the arts arena.
I just like to find a bear that I could find. Hey! Last performance.
And since he didn't speak that much of the war at a young age, when I started getting those history lessons and started recognizing the names of those battles that he was in, some of those ships he had sailed on, that's when it sank in for me that it was something special.
It was early 1944, when the world was at war. The outcome was very much in doubt. The Allies had liberated northern Africa and landed in Anzio, Italy. It had been just over 3 years since the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
By this point, America had turned from a sleepy nation to an emerging war machine, where every walk of life was affected by war. Rations on items like tires and sugar affected nearly every home. Women found new opportunities to serve their countries in factories and on farms. Families huddled around newspapers and radios as most sent their sons into battle. Over 16 million were in uniform by war's end. But in Wetumpka, Oklahoma, this moment in time scared a young man named Marvin Banton. He wasn't scared of the war, but scared he was going to miss his opportunity to serve.
When I got 18, I went down and signed up. I guess it's just something inside of me that told me I wanted to do that. I was just dedicated to getting in the service. And I just somehow felt that that's what I wanted. The Army man said, well, we'll take you. So I joined the Army, and right there.
Marvin became a paratrooper and talked his way into making it to Europe as soon as he possibly could. He would become a replacement and join up with the 70th Infantry Division in northern France by October 1944, just before the Germans' counteroffensive in the Ardennes, better known as the Battle of the Bulge. Marvin would be on the front line through the violent and frigid winter, pushing the Nazis back into Germany.
When I got drafted, they drafted when he was 20, and I was in the harvest field pitching bundles with the team in the wagon to a thresher crew. I got a whole $1 a day for that with a pitchfork in my hand, loading wagons. And Saturday night we shut off for Sunday. And Monday morning, Dad took me to El Reno, Oklahoma. And then we got on a train at the depot and went to Fort Sill. That was as far as I'd ever been away from home in my life. And as soon as you're 20, you're on your way. And we knew it, but we just, well, it's time to go. And that's when the time comes, you get in the car and go. Can't really explain it, but during basic, they told you wasn't coming back. It'd just be an accident. You just do the best you can, get as many as you can, but don't figure on coming back.
Those words would ring true for many in Raymond Stover's unit. He would eventually end up in the storied 28th Infantry Division, a division better known as the Bloody Buckets, a nickname given to them by the Germans because of the red keystone insignia on their shoulder, but principally because of their tenacity as warriors and the way that they fought and the way that they died. Raymond's regiment would leave American soil with over 1,000 men. Only 17 would come home. The 28th would be on the front lines from Normandy through northern France, the Ardennes, Rhineland, and eventually Central Europe. Nearly every major campaign in the European theater. About 20 miles directly south of Raymond Stover's family farm in Piedmont was another Oklahoma farm boy who served with the Bloody Buckets as well.
I was in the infantry. I got to see a lot of country. I come in there at Omaha Beach, France, and that was quite a nigga. Well, I've never really liked to talk about it too much, but I was in the front lines from the time I got into France till I made the march through Paris. My organization did. And then from there we crossed over into Germany, and that's when I got hurt. Well, I got shrapnel. That's what happened to me. Artillery got me. Well, I was going through my mind, and probably the next round was probably going to get me that they sent in, but they didn't get me. Quite a while in the hospital over it. And I'm glad that's all over. We made it through it. Some of us didn't. And anyway, that was it. I don't like to talk about it too much now.
It's an eye-opening to listen to what he does say and to think that him and many, many others were in that same situation. These men that has gone and fought not just for our freedoms, for the freedoms of the French and the countries over there. For many years, like I said, he didn't talk about it and we didn't bring it up, and I believe because the things he saw was just too horrible. And I'll tell you, to this day, he has nightmares. All these years later.
James Clark's fight for freedom was a nightmare, and he carried his wounds for over 70 years. During his time in the war, he was shot through his arms and legs, separated from his unit, captured by the enemy, escaped, and then suffered shrapnel wounds from an artillery round that would ultimately put him out of the war. He would spend 21 months in a rehab facility, learning how to walk again. His story, like millions of others, are the stories of sacrifice that preserved America's freedom for over 200 years. Heroes that deserve to be honored, men who should be remembered for their sacrifice, even though some of these veterans, like James Clark, wish they could forget those years of service altogether. In May of 2004, the United States government dedicated the newly built National World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. It was an effort that came nearly 60 years after the Allies received the unconditional surrender from the Empire of Japan. The memorial was designed to forever remember the heroic 16 million men and women who served in our armed forces during the war. By the time the memorial was dedicated, an estimated 2 million World War II veterans remained. The youngest were in their late 70s. Unless someone acted on their behalf, the vast majority of these vets would never see the memorial that was built to recognize their service. It was out of this need that a nonprofit called the Honor Flight Network would be created. Its mission was simple: to transport America's veterans, free of charge, to Washington, D.C., to visit the memorials dedicated to their service and sacrifice.
Early 2009, I was serving as chairman of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee of the Oklahoma House of Representatives. I received an email from a constituent. It tells me that her husband and her father had been selected to go on an honor flight out of Dallas.
They were both thrilled at what took place there and what happened, and my dad was just, talking about it for days after that. I had sent an email to Gary knowing that there were so many veterans still in our state who had not gone to D.C. to be able to see their memorials.
And she wanted to know, essentially proposed the question, what are we doing in Oklahoma for our veterans? And I didn't have a good answer.
What started as an email quickly became a movement across the state of Oklahoma. A volunteer board was assembled and the Oklahoma Hub was created in association with the National Honor Flight Network. And Oklahoma Honor Flights was born.
What it ultimately became was Oklahoma's story. It was a story of how Oklahomans responded to the challenge of answering the question that inevitably will be asked 50 years from now or 75 years from now. What did Oklahoma do for its World War II community before it was too late? Overall, the hundreds of volunteers, our board of directors, the people who were intricately involved in the management of the details of the logistics of each flight, it was with one thought and one thought alone, and that was to get as many of our World War II veterans who were still willing to travel and able to travel to be able to experience this day in D.C. at no cost to them. We had enough applicants to fill the first plane the day we started. We chartered Boeing 737. That in itself was the lion's share of the cost of a flight. When we started out, our flights were running roughly $100,000. So that became the immediate challenge, was how in the world do you raise $100,000? Those of us who would go as guardians and administering the program would pay our own way. So we raised about a third of the money that way. For us, we had the rare combination of that sense of urgency based on how rapidly they were passing away. 500 on the waiting list, and they're passing away at 750 a day across the nation. We don't have much time, folks. We need some help. And the help came. This happened as a result of the generosity of Oklahomans in general.
From May of 2010 to April of 2016, Oklahoma Honor Flights would take 2,055 veterans on a once-in-a-lifetime journey.
We had a file in the office, and I entered that in an Excel spreadsheet and then sorted it by date of application. Took the 90-year-olds and older first and then went by date of application. And that's the order that I called all of the veterans in. The last week or two before every flight, I was spending 25 or 30 hours a week on honor flights.
Every flight, it was kind of like a crescendo. You have this enormous buildup. Once they were invited and you got down close to the week of, 2 or 3 days before the send-off, there is an enormous sense of responsibility when you're charged with the safekeeping and care of that group of folks. The challenge, that was probably the biggest logistical challenge, was how do we do this and get everybody back without incident? Because we loaded and unloaded the plane twice, we loaded and unloaded our ground transportation 5 times, and then all of the time that you're on the ground and the long distances that you had to travel to, in an airport, for example, became a real challenge.
In April of 2016, Oklahoma Honor Flights would have its last and final flight. And like the 23 flights before it, this flight would have a manifest full of heroes. Heroes that had been waiting a long time to see their memorial.
Good morning, everybody. This is a roll call number 1 for Flight 24 of Oklahoma Honor Flights.
We would normally ask them to be down ready to board the buses to go to the airport at about 4:15. We would get an Oklahoma Highway Patrol escort from the hotel to the respective airports. That's a pretty impressive sight in the morning to see the OHP with their red and blue lights on, piercing that blackness of the early morning hour.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is how aptly named that program is. Them guys were truly honored from the moment they arrived till the moment they departed after the trip.
Each flight was unique in its own right because of the composition. We had, on every flight, we had somebody from Pearl Harbor, from D-Day, from Battle of the Bulge, from North Africa, from the Pacific, Bataan Death March. I mean, you read it in the history book, at some point, one of those participants was with us on a flight. There was a certain degree of magic, I think, that occurred and dynamic that was created by the esprit de corps of bringing that group of Oklahomans together for one last mission, and that mission was to go see their World War II memorial.
It's quite overwhelming. The first airport we unloaded into, I could hear the cheers and such before I got off the plane. Probably will always remember that there was this one woman come up there to Dad, bent down and kissed his hand, and told him thank you, and that was very touching. I told the wife when I got home, I never seen so many old men cry in my life, but I didn't tell her I was right in amongst them. Showing the gratitude that the people have shown to them just spilled over onto me and made me so proud. No explanation for it other than just being proud of them. They all said thank you and we love you and everything else. We grab you and hug you and stuff like that, and you don't forget that.
Every veteran there, to the last soul, felt greatly honored. I have no doubt in my mind. There's no way they could not have. The whole trip was wonderful, but the thing that will always stand out to me in my memory is when we did arrive at the World War II Memorial. And what happened was completely spontaneous. It was impromptu, but word got out that these were World War II veterans here at the World War II Memorial. And as they walked or were pushed or limped toward the memorial, all the visitors there from all over the world parted ways on both sides of the pavement and gave these guys a standing ovation. And this wasn't 15 or 20 yards long, it was 100 yards long. And that was definitely the crowning moment of the entire trip.
It was much different than I expected. I thought I'd fit like a sore thumb up there. But as it worked out, I was praised, and made me feel real good. People were taking pictures with me and all that sort of thing.
As soon as I took Dad and we wheeled him to the side, out of the way of the mainstream, people just were coming from everywhere, just wanting to shake all these veterans' hands.
I was in the Army for 10 years. Yes, I went to Iraq.
You was?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Really appreciate it. You guys are never gonna be forgotten. Never. You guys made a huge difference.
And they wanted to kneel down and ask them their story and tell them thank you.
And I went through France. I landed there at Omaha Beach, and I'm proud that I made the Victory March in Paris.
Wow.
And then I left Paris, went through Belgium and Luxembourg, and finally got into Germany. And they shot me. They shot me when I got there.
They shot you?
Yeah, I don't know why. They didn't like me. The Germans didn't like me.
They didn't like you. I wonder why.
Yeah,
but you made it through all that.
And everywhere we went, it was handshakes. They wanted to hug him.
What do your purple pins mean?
Yeah, and the 2 hearts, that means I got shot twice.
It just made me so proud to see somebody come up and just kneel down beside Dad and pat him on the leg and say, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for your service. And it made me feel wonderful. And he told a few more little things throughout being up there than what I have ever heard.
From the World War II Memorial, the honor flight would visit the Lincoln, Korea, Vietnam, and Iwo Jima memorials. Powerful examples of the sacrifice that each of these veterans identified with. Every step of the way was a chance to demonstrate the appreciation that our nation has for those who paid the price for freedom. And nothing symbolizes that appreciation for sacrifice better than the sobering honor felt at Arlington Cemetery in an appointment with the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknowns. As the group would transition to getting on the bus to head to the airport, there was another opportunity to remember their service.
We do a thing called mail call. And so people from all over and school kids and family members have all written mail for you. And we're going to hand it out.
Mail call.
Awesome. Wow. This was a chance to personally honor each veteran for their service.
Mail call was such a significant part of going off to war. These guys never actually got to talk to their relatives other than through letters.
This was for Papa.
Elton Martin.
We collected over 50,000 letters from Oklahoma school children.
Thank you for our freedom. Thank you for keeping all of us safe. Thank you for putting your life on the line. Thank you for serving our country.
I got two of them big envelopes full of letters. One of them I read, I got to kicker. He says, P.S. I like to fight too. I thought that was pretty good. I'd like to meet him.
I like to hear the stories you tell of when you were in the Navy.
We have to teach these generations that there have been times of great sacrifice, particularly in this time when everything is so divisive right now. It is possible for this country to come together for a common cause, for a common good, to ensure the future of all of us.
That's huge.
That's going to be a legacy of this program, particularly in those kids' lives, and then they'll pass that on when their time comes.
After a long and emotional day, the group would journey home to finish this last nostalgic mission. Every veteran had a different experience when they came home from the war. This time, as they came home with their brothers in arms, they would be greeted by their community and their family one last time.
The receiving lines at the airport, people there with their children, signs made up, veterans groups, policemen, representatives from every branch of the armed service were there, and they weren't there for a show. They were there because they truly appreciated and recognized that this chance was almost gone.
I'd always heard him, we never got anything, or we never seen anything like that, you know. I come home and greeted my brothers and my dad, and the next day we was out in the field. It just like nothing ever happened. I thought then that maybe he would get the recognition and the show of thanks that he'd been short all these years.
The very last flight, it was kind of bittersweet. It was hard. It was very difficult for our board to make that decision that we've done what we set out to do, and we need to declare that mission accomplished.
Oklahoma Honor Flight started as an opportunity for Oklahoma to honor and impact their World War II veterans. But over the course of 24 flights, there were countless stories of how these veterans were the ones impacting Oklahoma. 70 years ago, it was paying the price for our freedom with their very lives. Now it was showing us what that sacrifice looks like through their life's story. Every donor, every board member, every bystander who shook a veteran's hand was given this gift. Many of those lives were changed forever.
What I'm about to describe is my most poignant moment in working with the Honor Flight program. We go to the Vietnam Memorial, and we ran into a Oklahoma World War II veteran. He was by himself, and he was at the Vietnam Memorial. And he had a faraway look in his eyes. So I went up to him and I said, "Sir, we're with Oklahoma Honor Flights. Would you like to walk with us?" And he said, "Yes, I think so, but I'm looking for wall number 38. Can you help me find wall number 38? And said, "Sure." So we found wall number 38. And he stood in front of wall number 38, started at the top, and his eyes were going down, and I could tell he was counting. He was counting the number of lines down. And as he counted the number of lines down that he was looking for, the line he was looking for was at the very bottom. It was maybe 18 inches off the ground. He got down on his knees, and when he found the line at the bottom that he was looking for, his finger went across the names, and it stopped. He stood there, knelt there for some time, and all of a sudden he put his hands out like that, and he put his face in his hands, and he started sobbing. And so I knelt down by him, and he said, "That's my boy." And that man made the ultimate sacrifice. He gave his son after his own World War II service as a member of the greatest generation. My thoughts on what makes America great, and that is the partnership between the world's greatest military and the citizenry that supports that military. I would hope that certainly the historical importance of World War II and those who served, we don't want to lose that history. We want that history to be part of what is passed down to future generations.
It has opened him up a little bit more to where he talks a little bit more about things now. I think the impact of what the nation did to honor them and put this memorial up, he just couldn't believe how big this memorial was. sometimes when you come back from war, you don't know if you're pretty proud of what you've done, but now he's got a bigger picture of things now, of how people really appreciate what they did. It really impacted his life, made him very proud.
For James Clark's family, any connection to his service is treasured. For a man who had seen some of the worst that the war had to offer, it has always been difficult to connect, to get him to open up about his service. However, this is one treasure that the family had always wanted to experience for themselves, with their father. A footlocker filled with memories from James Clark's time in Europe, and James could never bring himself to go through these memories with his children. A connection that his children desperately wanted. After his honor flight, and to his children's surprise, their father changed his tune.
Let's get into that foot locker just as soon as possible.
You want me to go get it right now?
Because it is it's
you want to bring it in?
Yeah, I'll bring it in if you want to open it up and tell us the story.
Can you carry it?
Yeah.
Bring it in.
Probably any of us could have opened the thing if we wanted to, but not out of fear, but out of respect, we've never touched it.
But he's been really guarded. And it's after all this honor flight business that I think it's all come to mind a little bit more to show it to his family. So today, it's going to be pretty amazing.
It's been years since I've been in this here.
Or whatever it's been. And it was so emotional watching his face as he handed me this stuff, because it means a lot to him.
Say, to my youngest son, James, from Mother.
Yeah, my mother gave me that.
Another Bible.
Bible.
Thank you for opening that.
Thank you, hon. You'd be surprised what a history I've got behind me. I've done just about little everything.
Yes, you have. And that's why all four of us are very proud of you.
Huh?
That's why we're all very proud of you.
Yeah, well, I survived anyway.
Yes, you did. And look what you've built since then. Look what you've done since you've come home. Look at the family you've made. And then look at the families we've all made. And it's because of you.
Each veteran responded differently to their experience of going on their honor flight. Where many opened up to their families for the first time, others received the honor they deserved for the first time. When Raymond came home from war 70 years ago, there was very little fanfare. He went straight back to work on the farm and hasn't stopped since.
Well, it made me do a lot of thinking, because golly, the credit they give us, how they treated us, and the public, it's just, it was very emotional. I mean, I never dreamt that people cared that much. It's just unbelievable. All said thank you and we love you and everything else. I'll never forget it, no way.
I was appreciated. I think that's the thing I noticed first, that I was being noticed. And I'm really glad I made this last trip,
When we think about the sacrifice offered by the generations that went before us, we can only imagine that they dreamed of days like this one, fishing with their sons, enjoying peace. For Marvin Banta, this is what freedom looks like. It's been 70 years since that frigid winter in the Vosges Mountains. The majority of his life is behind him, and he enjoys his twilight, his peace, the fruits of his commitment on the battlefield. Will we enjoy this peace afforded to us as well? will we know that this moment was purchased by generations of men and women in uniform that put their lives on the line for our freedom. For that, we honor, we remember, and we tell their story for future generations.
And if we ever fail to underappreciate freedom, what that really means, liberty, and all that goes along with it, the prosperity that we enjoy, the comfortable lives that we lead, being able to lay your head down at night and sleep peacefully. If you've never had that challenged or threatened, it's hard to fully appreciate. And the fact that people can and do appreciate that, and recognizing that not only these guys, but the guys in uniform are still laying their very lives down on the line so that we back home can appreciate and can have these comfortable, peaceful lives. And if we ever stop appreciating that, ever stop remembering the sacrifices that were made, it's over.